Welcome back to the Wizard Shop. Today's reoccurring theme in this video is going to be common issues across entire generations of the same maker of cars. Let's get started. So today we're going to talk about Mercedes Benz. And what we have is three different generations of three different models, but of the same make of car, but they all have had or have the same exact issues, the same exact parts almost that are wrong. This is an 85 Mercedes 300D, which has been in some of our videos before. You guys have seen this. We brought this thing back to life. The customer has a few more things that he'd like looked at and added to the list of things, and we're happy to take care of that for him. Then we have the CarTrek 2 CL65 AMG. It's a 2005. And up there, way down there, the white Mercedes 1990 300 SE. The 80s, the 90s, and the early 2000s. All these cars have had the same parts replaced, the same problems, and that is Mercedes driveline vibrations. So here we are with all these Mercedes parts that we're going to look at on these vehicles today on this wonderful bin pack table. They sent this to us and they have a lot of parts in their Ranger line of products. Check the description below. Lots of cool bin pack shop equipment. So let's start with this end. What we see here, it looks like two little gray blobs of Play-Doh. They are not. They are motor mounts. Completely collapsed motor mounts. These are very common on any of these cars for them to collapse, and the engine sinks a little bit, and now it's resting, basically resting on the frame, and you feel the engine vibrating really rough through the whole body of the car. So this will be part of our theme today, motor mounts. The next part, transmission mounts. These look the same, 1985, 1990, 2005. They all look like this pretty much. This one's completely collapsed. I can put my finger in it. Shouldn't be able to. This will also cause the transmission to sink down. You can see it there. It is completely sunken down and creates improper drive line angles where your drive shaft was pretty much straight. Now it's sunken down and it's crooked, and it makes the drive shaft kind of out of kilter, if you say. And it can make vibrations also through the car. And lastly, flex joints, drive shaft flex joints. Mercedes likes to use these a lot on their drive shafts in place of U-joints. Most of you work on old Chevys or old Dodges, and you know the term U-joint. This is basically a Mercedes style U-joint. It's a flex disc. European cars, actually a lot of different brands of European cars use these. But these are heavily, heavily cracked, as you can see where my finger is pointed. They are very, very bad. And once they get really bad, then the drive shaft can actually flop around and create vibration that way. And these are all the bolts that go to the flex joints. Whenever you buy a new kit of flex joints or flex discs, they come with new bolts, and you throw the old bolts away. So that's what all these bolts are here for. So this is the theme today. Motor mounts, trans mounts, and flex disc or flex joints. All three of these cars span multiple generations, different models of the same make, all the same technology. The parts are almost identical, maybe a little bigger, a little smaller, or vice versa. We're going to go ahead and raise this one up, and we'll show you what I'm talking about. This is the only diesel in our lineup of cars today, but it still applies to gas, diesel. It really doesn't matter with these Mercedes. Now keep in mind, this is the oldest Mercedes I have in here right now, but this same technology, the same problems are in the late 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010. They use the same technology for all those generations. Let's go ahead and get started and take a look. This is the motor mount that's resting on. That is a brand new motor mount. This one's had all new mounts and things put on it. But you can see it's resting up nice and high. It's not sunken down. If you would have seen this originally with the old motor mounts, that black rubbery portion, which is like an arch shape right here, was completely flat and even with this surface. Those are nice and new and in good shape. And right here where my finger is touching is also the other motor mount on the driver's side. Again, a nice strong arch of rubber holding up the engine, suspending it properly. Next up is we have a transmission mount. This one's shaped a little differently than the one I showed you a minute ago. It's the same principle. It has rubber mounts right here with a metal triangular trapezoid shape there. It has one nut on top and 2 bolts on the bottom. On the old transmission mount, this was also completely collapsed to where the bottom of this trapezoid shape was actually almost touching the cross member. But now you can see it's nice and supported, it's fully up in the air, and you can see if I move it there, it's suspending it properly. This is giving proper geometry for the drive shaft. Everything is where it should be to its original position. Right above that, where my finger is touching, is a flex disc. This is a 1985 Mercedes, and when we get to the point where we look at the 05 Mercedes, decades in between these cars, same exact technology, same exact problems. So that's what one of the flex discs on the forward portion looks like. And lastly is the flex joint at the rear of the drive shaft, which is right here. Looks just like the front one, same technology, same stuff. As you've seen on the old one, they can get cracks all through this rubber. This one's nice and brand new. Any of those parts that I just showed you will cause the vehicle to be able to transmit vibrations through the body, and you can feel the engine running through the steering wheel. It can also create the improper geometry, so when you're going down the road, you feel like a pulsating vibration, like whoa, 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 whoa. You feel it through the steering wheel or through the body. It can be that the transmission's mount is out and allowed the transmission to sink and made the drive shaft not in the proper line anymore. And also there's the carrier bearing and the flex joints, which can also go bad and cause vibration issues. So these Mercedes, all the way to the 60s, all the way to the 2000s, can have the same vibrations, the same problems, and all have the same solutions. On this car, all of those items I just showed you were failed, and it was really bad. When you would drive it, it was just like, whoa, it sounds like it's going to come apart. Now it's smooth and quiet. All these Mercedes I'm showing you today are all getting the same parts replaced because they all have the same problem, vibrations. Let's move to the 1990 300 SE. So on this 300 SE, Hoovy mentioned in his video, he's having driveline issues, vibrations, all kinds of different issues, and we're working through those now. But this has a similar transmission mount as the 300D we just looked at. And this is what happens when they go bad. Look at that, guys. It wasn't even connected. So when you would give it a lot of acceleration, the whole transmission would rise up in the air. Typically you get oil leaks, transmission leaks, things that drips onto this rubber and it destroys it. You could tell that this was completely sunken down as well because there was nothing holding it anymore. It just slipped all the way down. So it would just move all the way up and down through the different ranges of acceleration, stopping. This is a bad, bad mount. Here's a nice new one that's going in. Completely one solid unit. The rubber is connected in all different directions. And it is flexible, but it's not going to sink all the way down. It will give the proper geometry like it's supposed to be. So let's take a look on the car itself. So just like on the 300D, there's a motor mount. It's very easy to see on this one. The shocks are still good. These slow the movement of the engine and keep it from rocking, but these are still in good shape. But there you see the motor mount. These were completely collapsed. I mean, flat as a pancake. Now it's sitting up high, sitting up like it's supposed to be, giving the proper position of the engine. We can look over here. There's also a motor mount and a good shock there. Again, the rubber is nice and arched and it's supporting the engine by the rubber, not by it resting on the metal, which is the black right here, black metal. Let's move back to the transmission mount, which at the current time is non-existent. It has a small leak coming from up in this area. We're going to take care of that so it doesn't leak anymore. But you can see that the transmission mount bolts in right here, and it also bolts in right here on this cross member that goes here. We're currently supporting this transmission with this transmission jack we actually got from Ranger Products from BenPack. But you have to support it so that you can get the mount loose, because the mount's going to no longer be holding it. Something has to hold it up, so you have to use a transmission jack or a jack. We have wood on here as a spacer, but wood is soft and it also spreads the load across the pan evenly. You don't ever want to use a small block of wood to jack up on the pan. You could just cave in the whole pan. You need to spread the load across the whole pan, and that's why we have the wood. Next is our flex joint, which has not been replaced yet, but this one has cracks all through it. Here we have the back flex joint. You can see they're currently in the process of removing it. This is the drive shaft. It only has 3 connections. The other 3 connections actually go to the pinion yoke, which my finger is on right here. You can see the other 3 on the other side. Those bolts I just showed you actually go through the drive shaft into the flex joint, and the other bolts go from the flex joint to the yoke back here. But this flex joint is also in bad shape. It's got lots of age and wear on it. So we're replacing those as well. So here we are 5 years newer on a newer model of vehicle. We're in the 1990s now. Still the same technology, the same problems, driveline vibrations, engine vibrations, which is common across many, many Mercedes Benz vehicles. Now let's move over to the Car Trek 2 vehicle. So many of you have watched Car Trek Season 2 already, and you've seen the red CL65 that's in there. It's no longer red. We've removed the wrap. Hoovy wants the wrap removed on. He likes this color. He really likes this original color. But as you've seen, he ran that car pretty hard. But in my wizard inspection in Car Trek, we talked about motor mounts, transmission mounts, and flex disc, and I gave him a quote based on that. Here we are in 2005. Same problems, same parts, and we're going to go show you guys what they look like on this car. Let's raise it up. So in the Car Trek Season 2, we also mentioned it needed valve cover gaskets, which you'll be getting. You can see that's why there's oil leaking here. But today we're talking about motor mounts. So if you look up here where you see my fingers touching, you can see what looks like a gray blob of Play-Doh. That's actually the cover that goes over the new motor mounts that are in here. It actually sits a little higher now, like it's supposed to, instead of flat and resting on the body. You can see the other motor mount that's also up here where I'm touching. Those are a little bit more difficult to change than the last 2 cars we looked at, but they had to be changed because it had horrible vibration of the engine through the body. Let's move back to the transmission mount. Here we are with a nice new transmission mount. As you can see up the top, I would not be able to fit my finger in there now. The rubber is properly supporting the tail end of the transmission like it's supposed to, providing the proper geometry for the driveline. You can also see the new flex disc that's up above there. Brand new rubber, brand new bolts. No cracks, no damage. Proper alignment and proper alignment with a proper flex joint. Just like on the 300 SE, you can't really see the drive shaft support and the bearing, but those have been taken care of. With all the heat shields and things in the way, you can't see them. Now here we are at the rear flex disc. You can see it's got brand new bolts. It's got brand new flex disc. No more cracks and damage. We have the drive line at a proper alignment with the motor mounts and the transmission mount. And now we have the proper flex joint so it can flex like it's supposed to, but it doesn't have cracks and damage that allows the drive shaft to flop around while it's rotating going down the road. So I'm glad you guys could follow along. I really wanted to do a video to show you. I've had so many different Mercedes in, and they talk about, I can feel the engine through the body. There's a vibration at 60, 70 miles an hour that feels like it's in the middle of the car. It doesn't matter if it's 1965, 1975, 1985. 1990, 2005, it doesn't matter. On Mercedes Benz vehicles, they all use the same technology, the same design, the same setup. And no matter what year it is, when I hear those complaints on the phone, I automatically know without a doubt, oh, you're going to need motor mounts, transmission mount, drive shaft support and bearing, and flex discs. I go ahead and quote all of that because all of them have to be in order for it to function properly and to absorb all the sound and vibrations. This is not a design flaw because for many, many years, these cars didn't have any issues with that. It's age, heat, vibration, and sometimes oil leaks that causes these to fail. When they do fail, it's many years down the road. They don't fail like in 1 or 2 years. So although it seems like we have several different generations of cars all with the same problem, it must be an inherent flaw. It's not a flaw. It's just that age has gotten to them. So that's why they're all being replaced. It's actually a very good design. When all the angles and the geometry is correct, and the flex discs are there to absorb any kind of slight amount of movement, it's a very smooth and very quiet driveline. It works really good. It's well designed. Mercedes did very good in the way that they made those. But when they age or when they fail, you sure do know about it when you drive them. You can feel, like I said, the vibrations and all the things going on through the body of the car. If any of these things we mentioned today fail, it's not necessarily going to be the end of the world. You can probably drive it a little bit longer until you can get it into the shop and get it fixed. Unless one of your flex joints have completely separated, at that point it'll be so nasty and loud that you'll know you can't drive your car anymore. But for the most part, if you're feeling the vibrations or something's up, call your mechanic, get it scheduled in. You can still drive your car for a little while longer, but you definitely need to get it addressed because it's annoying. I've had these cars before, and when they're not right, it's very annoying. For this being a $60, $80, $100 or more $1,000 car, it should not drive with those annoying vibrations that way. So thanks for following along. There are all these generations of Mercedes we have in the shop. It's kind of cool that we had them all at the same time. It's a perfect time to do a video for you guys. If you're curious what kind of tools we use to replace all the same parts and all these vibration issues, check my Amazon affiliates link in the description below. We got all my tools that I use listed there. We get a small cut. Really appreciate that. Also, if you haven't hit the subscribe button already, we've got so many more cool videos to come and yacht videos. Thanks for watching.